Hi, everyone, and welcome. I am Connie Cay-Santos, founder and CEO of K7 Inc. and Her Seat at the Table. I'm thrilled to kick off the very first episode of Ask Her Anything series, a space curated for open, honest, and empowering conversations with inspiring leaders and industry experts. This isn't a presentation, so it's not going to be boring. It is an intentional dialogue where we dive into real questions, explore current challenges, and walk away with tangible insights, tools, and those powerful aha moments. So I'm especially excited to welcome our very first guest, Leanne Velky. Leanne is a force in the world of event tech and registration systems. She's helped countless teams streamline their registration process, elevate attendee experience, and stay ahead in a rapidly changing industry. Whether you're an expert in the events industry, a freelancer, a corporate planner, or navigating a transition, this session is for you. So don't be shy. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat or raise your hand when we open the floor. And thank you to those of our community members who have eagerly already submitted some questions for Leanne in advance. So let's jump in, Leanne.
I am so ready. Let's do it.
Amazing. Yay, let's get started. And maybe we can start with an icebreaker question. So, Leanne, before we dive into the registration system questions and strategy, tell us, what was your first aha moment in terms of your career where you realized you loved working in the events and tech?
Those are actually two different things.
It is.
Events and tech are two different things. So my aha moment for events was s- actually I took a year off of college. And as doing that, I still needed to qualify for my parents' health insurance. So I did an at-home wedding planning course that would still qualify me. And it was that moment that I realized, oh my gosh, like I could actually have a career in like doing event stuff. I didn't even know that was an option before I was, I guess, like 20 years old. So that was my events aha moment. And then over time, my tech aha was a little bit slow off the back of that, but I think really what happened was I did all the things in events in the corporate event world at my first job where I was for 5 years. But I always had this like draw to the tech side, but we just like there wasn't a need for me to do the tech stuff there. And so I was given an opportunity by a former colleague of mine to actually go help manage our Cvent account at a pharmaceutical company. And it was there that I really was like, okay, now I get to like lean into my techie, nerdy side. And it's been honestly, that has been an ongoing um, self-acceptance and really like many aha moments when I look back on like the tech nerdy side of me. Um, and something actually, this is weirdly like I'm weirdly passionate about younger girls actually trying to encourage them to embrace their nerdy techie side because I fought it for so long, like my whole life. Um, and I'm so like incredibly just happy with where I'm at now and like so happy that I actually did lean into it and embrace my nerd side. So two totally different stories.
But I love the evolution of you falling in love with the event planning from a wedding side first, and then slowly being introduced to a project to help a friend with event tech and CVent. And I know you are a guru in CVent in terms of the registration system, but I'm going to dive in here a little bit deeper for 1 second, because when you talk about technology and you felt like you were hiding as a like a young female in the industry, why? What was that like? What was that barrier for you to like fully have that confidence to just take it and grab it and own it? Like what was holding you back?
So, um, yeah, I know this is like not the point of this
That's
whole
okay,
like
but
what
we're
we're
getting
here
to know
for,
you.
but so yeah, I so I grew up in a house where my dad is actually very nerdy and techie. And I literally grew up like taking computers apart on our living room floor with my dad. So computers have quite literally been a whole part of my life, my entire life.
Mhm.
Like, you know, the old box computers in the 90s, we were like, had them apart on the floor, all of the pieces all over the floor. Um, and so I was always like, I've actually always really loved computers and software and stuff. But I am kind of a girly girl and I'm a rule follower and I don't like to get in trouble. And I preface all of that because all of the like computer classes when I was in high school all had like the kind of delinquent boys in it. And I just like didn't at the time being this sort of like awkward like girly teenager trying to like figure out my place in the world. I was like, I don't want to be around those like the, you know, the boys that get detentions and are acting up in class. And like I just didn't really want to be a part of that group. Um, and now I'm like mad at myself that I was so like worried about the like external sort of perception or um energy, and I kick myself that I didn't take all those classes. I had such an opportunity, right? We had
Mm,
so much opportunity when we were in high school, and even in college I still fought those classes when I was in college, and I was just like, I don't need an Excel class because I'll just figure it out. And now I'm like, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I take the Photoshop classes and the web design classes and the like Excel? Like when I had the opportunity, it was right in front of me.
mm,
And, you know, then kind of came the career where it's really been like this transition over into just really recognizing, doing a lot of inner work on myself to not only accept but love that I am a little female tech nerd. And like the more I lean into that, the better I get at my job now. And so now I can see that there's a lot of benefits in me like owning that and embracing it. But it has literally been a lifelong journey, Connie.
well, I thank you for sharing that story and just the
Thank you
empowerment,
for asking.
allowing yourself to own it, right? So I love it. It's a great introduction. And I'm actually going to skip icebreaker two, unless you want me to ask it. Want me to ask it?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, let's dive right into why we're here with regards to the topic of registration. So, with regards to registration strategies and setup, and these are the questions that came from our community in the past, is what are the top three most important things that event planners overlook when setting up their registration process? What's your thoughts? Because you have lots of clients that you've supported, and you've probably seen a lot of like, oh no, don't do that. Oh no, you forgot this. What are your top three?
Okay, this will I feel like this will just set the stage for everything, but this is like I'm extremely passionate about a lot, like this as a foundational question.
Mhm,
Um, I'm laughing because this is such a like pervasive thing that's happening right now that I'm really trying to work through, which is um putting words to being aware of the downstream effects of every single thing that we're building. Um, sorry, I'm like, what was the exact question? So I can um yeah, okay, we definitely overlook this. Top three things we overlook. We overlook a lot, to be honest.
mhm,
And we we are like we're such like yes people and people pleasers, right? And we are martyrs and we are like it's okay if we don't address that now. I'll just deal with it later. And that is like to me the absolute worst thing that we can do is to actually overlook the little details that you could set up front that will
mhm,
save you down the line. And it is a constant it drives me crazy with clients. Like the number of times I'm on calls and people are like, oh, it's fine. I'll just worry about that later. And I'm like, no, 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 no. We can address that now so that you don't have to do it later. right?
Hmm.
Um, so to me, it's like there's so many things we actually overlook because we are in this kind of rush state of just trying to get it done, just trying to get registration up. We just need a reg form done. We just need to go live. It doesn't matter what's in it. And we don't think about the word I keep leaning into is the downstream effects of how that's going to affect our time
Yeah.
and capacity later on. That's like a very big overarching thing, but it encompasses so many things of what we're overlooking, right? It's like it's the small details now, and it's also our own sanity and our own like ability to live and thrive in life when we are just saying yes to everything and we're like, yeah, it's fine, I'll just do that thing. But then you're up until 2 a.m. trying to like edit a spreadsheet because you didn't ask the right questions early on, or you
Yeah.
didn't ask it in the right way, right? And so I think we overlook ourselves to a really like high degree. Um, and yeah, that's not exactly three things, but it's a lot of things all rolled
It's
into
a
one.
lot, yeah. And if we dive into this one point for a second, like asking the right questions, especially when we want to get the right information down the road and not have
Mhm.
the downfall effect. What are probably the most important questions that we should ask our clients so that we can include those small and important details in the registration system and process?
Yeah. So my answer for so many of these things for everybody will be it is so dependent on what is important to your organization. And
Mhm.
so before we're even in a reg build process, I think it is so important that we're actually sitting down and either auditing what happened last year and
Yeah.
saying, you know, what data didn't we have last year that we need this year? What data did we ask for last year that we don't need this year? We didn't do anything with it last time, so we could get that out, right? And it's
Mhm.
really important, I think, for the whole team to sit down together and everyone be on the same page before we're just like trying to dump stuff into a registration process. Um, and yep, totally just lost my train of thought.
No, that's perfect. I think it's going to help me lead into the next question here is how do you recommend balancing simplicity for attendees with the data needs as sponsors and stakeholders? Because you just mentioned the lead into the evaluation of what happened last year, what was the right questions to ask within the registrations to what you need and what you don't need this year. So the next question is really like, what do we recommend to make sure that it's balanced and it's simple enough for the attendees to want to complete a registration? Because sometimes it's overcomplicated or too simple and we're not getting the right
Yeah,
information.
yeah. So multi-layered as always. I'm always team um ask the question if you need the data. If your team needs to know, you know, what area of the country people are coming from, then ask the question. Like don't cut that out just because you think you only have to have 5 questions, right? Like if your team is going to use that data for something, then ask the question. Um, and I'm big on two things when we're evaluating asking the questions. One is oh my God, my brain. I've probably had too much coffee today.
It's your time lap from
I
Frankfurt.
know from Germany. I'm still like, what is happening? Okay, when we are evaluating like whether we're going to ask the question or not, one is um three things actually. Are we going to actually do something with this question? That should always be a thing that we're asking.
Mhm.
Two is this applicable to everybody? And if not, I'm big on give give people either don't ask it of certain groups of people, like work your registration so that it's not shown for certain groups of people if necessary, But if it's just easier to ask the question, give them an out. Let them have an NA or something that says this is not applicable to me.
Mhm.
That's going to reduce friction for people immediately because if they hit a question where they're like, oh, I don't know how to answer this, or I fall in between these categories, or like this doesn't quite fit me, then that's going to stop them in their registration, right? That's going to stop their brain from wanting to move forward because they have to think about it too much.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm like either just don't ask it if you know certain people it's not applicable to them, or
Mhm.
give them an out for that question in particular. And the other thing is information and education. Like information all the time. Give them more information than you think they need. So if there's a question that you have to ask, give them a little explanation as to like why you're asking this question and how this is going to affect them or make their experience better, either on site or, help them. This question is going to help you narrow down your sessions. This, we'll be putting this on your name badge. Like, give them information so that they understand that you're not just asking this question for absolutely no reason.
Mm, I love that. And, the next question is asking, like, what's the effective way to collect attendee feedback during the registration process? But I want to layer back to what you talked about, a layered, multi-layered approach. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what that actually means? Because not everyone is a guru like you that understands that strategy.
Yeah, so this is another sort of new thing that I'm realizing is sort of the way my brain processes building registration. And I guess this would maybe even go back to question number one. But
Mhm.
the way that I look at building registration, to be honest, is actually from an attendee and agenda perspective. Um, so when I'm working with clients and we're starting out the build, even from the very beginning, clients will be like, we're hosting this meeting. It's going to be in Orlando. It's about 250 people. And I'm always like, don't care how many people are going to be there. Tell me about the people that are going to be there and tell me like what your agenda is looking like. I don't need specifics. I just will put that up front. I don't need to know exactly what the agenda every single session is that's happening every day, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of information to be found in your agenda. Um, the example I like to use, which is kind of a complex build but has really shaped how I build sites, is one of my longstanding clients. Their event was actually last week. They they have two sales organizations that come together for their annual sales meeting.
Mhm.
And in that, there are literally two separate agendas. So, two sales organizations go to two separate sets of sessions. And then there are certain things, of course, that overlap, like meals and evening events. And there are places where they touch. There's some general sessions, but then they have these completely separate agendas. And it took us a long time to actually get on the same page with detangling how we ultimately, as it comes to registration, the agenda is the only thing that matters, to be honest. People want to know where they need to go when they need to be there. Um, and so it took us hours to figure out how we build our registration in a way that makes implementing agendas for those specific groups of people easier, basically, for me. So I don't have to do individual agendas for every single person. But
Mhm.
then in all of that talking, there also comes the realization that, oh, wait, there's all these like executives that are going to have to see both agendas. They want to know where all the people are at all the times. So now I have to like layer in an option for them too. And I have to be able to build it in a way that these people see this, these people see this, and then the planning team and the executives can see everything. Um,
Track A, B, C.
Yes. Or it's like A, B, and then A plus B is
Mhm.
you could actually is really what happens.
Yeah.
Um, this year we had a fourth agenda. We had a whole nother one that came in later on. Late down the line, they decided to break people out into yet another group. So we had four agendas. So from once we figured out the verbiage and how to get on the same page with each other in like talking the same language and saying the same things, then we just kind of started referring to it as like, who's going to see what agenda? And that saves me like oodles of time down the line. And then I can just associate things to that specific agenda and they can see it. And it takes me not that long once the sessions are in.
Mm,
So for me, it's a lot about understanding who's in the room and what's actually happening kind of generally, but specifically in the rooms too with those people. So um breaking like being really aware of your audience and figuring out I spend an enormous amount of time with clients figuring out like who are your different groups of people, what do they need to answer, what do they need to see throughout their registration process, and then what how do we need to be prepared to disseminate information for them when it comes time to unroll like their app or send out confirmations or have them choose sessions or any of those. Like what are literally throw me any sort of restriction that's going to come down the line later on where we're going to be like, we should have broken these people out into a different group. Like
mhm.
talk me through, like I spend so much time doing that because doing that well means we get to save our sanity later, which is
Yeah, it's
top
important
priority
not to
always.
maintain, right? It's there's so much to unpack with there, but I'm going to
I
jump to the
know.
next question because I think with every fail moment as well, we learn those lessons. So I'm curious from a registration experience perspective, helping with your clients and your own event and registrations, can you share a moment where registration failed and how did that turn into a valuable lesson for you?
Um, yeah, I mean, here's the thing, like registration's never going to be perfect. And I'll just say that right off the bat, right? Even this client, I've literally been building their site for like 9 years. And there's always something that happens that we need to fix. So I think like just first and foremost, just like release yourself of the need for perfection and just know that you're gonna mess up somewhere along the
Mm.
line. Like that's just the nature of the beast. Um, One thing I always forget about in registration is badges.
How can you forget that, Leanne? Come
I
on.
know because I'm so focused on building like an efficient registration process that I oftentimes forget about how a lot of that actually connects to badging. And it's never a topic, it's quite literally never a topic of conversation with clients up front. And that is something that I need to be better at.
Mm,
Um, because inevitably, a lot of times, and this is sadly, this is not one fail. This is like many times this has happened where something something comes up, right? We need to have as pertains to like those agenda tracks, right? Like we want to have a blue dot on group A and a red dot on group B, but we didn't think about like how the badges were actually going to look or function, what we needed for badges until it's too late.
mm,
And so there's that. So then we're kind of going back and doing some sort of like manual
yeah.
fix and like importing something to be able to put some sort of indicator on there. That happens kind of a lot. But
It's a great lesson though, because I think the systematic of registration system is all about the information, right? And what you're going to use with the information. And your lesson here, the very valuable one about badges is how do we identify what track we've registered for ourselves or whether we're a VIP, if we're a speaker, or we're a regular attendee. So definitely a good lesson for those that's going to be listening on demand as well, that registration system needs to ask the right questions because that needs to be translated into a CSV file later on to convert into your badges as well. And I have to share my own personal story back in
Yes,
corporate
please.
world. And registration was one thing, but the badges, I swear, I hate badges because
I know.
manually printing them, editing them afterwards, it's painful. But like you said, the
Mm-hmm.
lesson, if you can put it and include it as part of your registration system, you streamline it and everything just outputs and you grab what you need, boom, it's done. No
Right.
manual entry for every little badge.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm gonna kill you if you want me to make a change. Just like,
I
no.
know. The thing, it's funny because this is also like a thing that I'm really paying a lot more attention to as of late and trying to like scream from the rooftops is really, I mean, not of late. I am very passionate about trying to make people understand how big a deal registration is. Like, I think I just have, like, I feel like it's just, people just think it's just this little form and it's like just this little thing that you just throw together to just, we just need to know who's coming. But it is so integral to so much of our event. Like, this is how we learn who's coming and how we learn about them and how we design experiences and how we decide to do badges and assign people to tables. And there's so much we actually need to do in advance of just trying to put this little form together, right? Like, I would love for more planners to be more proactive about having these thoughts and discussions internally before they're coming to me needing registration built. Like, come to me with an idea of what is happening on your badges, where it's like, oh, we're going to have to account for blah, 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 or these are the badges we did last year even. And these are the things we incorporated to it. And that's just like tends to always be a later in the process like conversation. But
Mm.
I like I think that so many people don't actually realize how like big a deal registration actually is. And I feel like such a nerd every time I say that, but I'm like, I'm so incredibly passionate about like, it is a big, it's so much more than just a little form, right? And it's like, it's really, it is this massive thing that it goes all the way through your entire event life cycle, truly.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah,
deserves so much more love and attention. Okay,
for
I'm off
sure.
my
And
soapbox.
no, I love your soapbox. I definitely see your passion oozing through. And one thing that we talked about previous to this conversation today is that there's recommendations out there to keep your registration super, super simple. 3 questions is all you need to ask. And I think that recommendation really is focused on a sales conversion perspective, right? You want people to register, you want them to get in. But going back to what we talked about in the past, it's also like a layered approach. Yes, we want conversion, we want them in, we want them registered. Ask 3 questions, but the next one, hey, registration's confirmed. By the way, to customize your experience, we need you to answer these additional questions. So I think the strategy and the approach in the registration process needs to rethink, right? So what you talked about, like there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of information and details that we need to ask. But I think at the same time, asking them all at one first stepping stone point may be overwhelming. So streamlining it and keeping it simple at the beginning might be a tactic for some companies and some events. And others may need a lot more information, but it's really about thinking and rethinking, reimagining. How do we layer that approach so that once you register 2 days later, it's like, congratulations, we're leading up to the event. Let's now customize, choose your sessions or choose your meal, or let us know about your accessibility needs or your dietary restrictions so that we can further engage and design an experience that matches that attendee's experience and need. In order
Okay,
to, yeah,
I
go
have
for it.
thoughts on that. I have thoughts on this. I'm
Go, go.
sorry. I'm like, let's dissect this a little bit because, as always, it absolutely depends on your organization, right?
Mhm.
Like, full stop always depends on your organization. I will always come back to it's never none of this is ever one size fits all, and it always really is what is good for you. My perspective on like quick registration, great for webinars, right? Like great for like low touch point things. in-person events, I think by nature need more stuff. We need more things from people, generally speaking, almost every single time. Um, there is an argument to be made for sure. Like if you have a CRM that already has your city and state of everybody that's coming, okay, fine. If that is up to date information and we can pull the information from there, fine to omit that from registration. Again, dependent on your organization and whether you have that capability and that tech already in place, and not everyone does.
Mhm.
The other thing is, if we are going to, I just want to be really like I don't know, I guess educational, but like cautionary on the the avenue if we were to take it to come back and get information later. And 2 points is one, you're never going to get 100% participation past that first touch point. So what are if we're going to go that route, what are the things that we're okay to only get 40 to 60% response rate on? Because once they're out, you're never going to get them to come back 100% again after that. So if you need something 100% of their answer, you can add a fourth
After
question.
the first, yeah, make
You
sure we
can
part of
add,
the first
you have my
step.
permission to add a fourth
Okay.
question. The other thing is really like, in order for that scenario to be successful, in my opinion, is your organization has to be really um, on the same page with your sales and your marketing and your events team, because it's going to take sales and marketing to get those people to come back and answer those questions, right? Like that has to be a really well thought out marketing plan. We don't just like say we're going to ask 3 questions, throw, you know what, at the wall and like hope that it sticks. And like, oh, maybe on Thursday we'll send out an email asking them to give us their meal choice. Like, hey, Sarah, can you like whip up this email and we're gonna send it out on Thursday? Like, no, we're not doing that. Like, we have a very well thought out marketing plan that is specifically targeted to people who have already registered, probably with some level of incentivization to get them to come back and answer those questions later. But it really is like a well-oiled machine for that to work well. And you also need to layer sales into that, because the sales team are the ones who are generally out there talking to the people, talking to the registrants, right? Like they're also a very important part of that. And if you are part of an organization where all those teams are really working well together, it can work, and it can be a way to do registration differently than the way it's being done right now, which is one big, huge, long form. But I will currently always advocate for one form, give them an out, make sure you're asking questions that are applicable to them, because I stand by my own experience registering. I don't care. I don't mind answering 35 questions, to be honest. If they're either applicable to me, they're going to add to my registration, my attendee experience, and it's clear that it's going to add, or if you've given me a way to quickly and easily opt out. So my problem with like when I register for IMEX or I've registered for IBTM, there's all these questions. It's like, how many events do you plan in a year? What's your annual budget? Blah, 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 these things. But those aren't applicable to me. So it takes me longer and there's more friction because they're not applicable to me. I really have to think about like, okay, well, I mean, I guess I do have a budget, but like, is this what you mean when you're asking about budget? And I have clients who have events. I do about, 20 events a year, like for clients. Is that what they're asking? And that's just like, it's slowing down my brain to where I'm like, it's not clear why you're asking or what exactly the question is, and you're not giving me an out. So now you're also getting bad data for me because I'm
You're
just going to
opting
pick
for
whatever
that.
answer. I'm going to pick the lowest answer. And so your low answer isn't going to give you good data, right? Like,
Mm.
so sorry. There's a that's that's a touchy subject for me because it
We
can
see you
work.
turning a little red. It's the passion color, which it's totally cool and
It's
fine.
the passion
I'm going to
color.
help us switch the
Yes,
conversation a little bit, but it's
do
still
it.
aligned to what we've been talking about in terms of data and analytics. From a registration platforms and analytics perspective, is there a platform that you think would provide the best analytics or tracking the attendees? And one specific questions from our community member was, which platform provides the best analytics for tracking attendees to donor conversion? Because there's a lot of fundraising event that this individual does. Any suggestions or recommendations or your thoughts on that?
I am not the expert on all the platforms, to be honest. I mostly work in Cvent and a little bit in Swoogo and have been working with crowd comms a bit. So I'm not well versed in all of the platforms out there. Um, I'm trying to think. There was what was oh, I'll remember it right when we stop, like get off this call and stop recording. I've seen a couple of actual like analytics platforms that I actually think are pretty cool. One in particular, but I'm completely blanking on what they are. Um, but they basically aggregated all of all your systems
Mhm.
and bring them all in together, and then you can do lots of like different custom dashboards, and I thought that was very cool. Cvent is terrible with I'll just say that they're not great on like the reporting side and the tracking side.
Okay.
They've been trying for years and I give them a lot of credit. Um,
Mm.
but I
Or-
wouldn't say they're the best.
Yeah. So maybe let's shift this question a little bit because, part of our pre-conversation was just saying that there's so many platforms out there from our event registrations and virtual platforms as a whole, and it's overwhelming to know them all.
Hmm.
Maybe the question is
There's a
more,
lot.
what is the guidance? What is the guidance to make sure that we're asking the right questions in our RFP so that we are getting what we need, especially on the analytics side? Like, what are the things we should ask for and what should we look out for and expect to inspect?
Um, I love that question. And as my same answer as all my other times, I think you always have to start with a foundation of what your organization needs. It's that my like one number, like one of my biggest pet peeves is scrolling through LinkedIn and seeing the people that are like, what's the best registration platform out there? What's everyone using? And the answer is what's best for me is probably not going to be what's best for you. And it really depends on your own organizational needs. And so, before you're even considering platforms or opening websites or, God, getting on calls with anybody for a platform, you really have to understand what your organization's needs and goals are.
Mhm.
What do you need to report on? Who's going to own that software? Who's going to be using it? What are the event types you are going to be using the software for? Like, there's so many questions you need to do and know well for your organization first.
Yeah.
And then you can go into demos and you can go into an RFP process with software and convert a lot of those questions over. Um, Funny
We're at
enough,
the top of our hour and let's wrap it up here. So, Leanne, would you like to share maybe your best practices or tips in terms of how we should approach registrations in the future? Over back to you.
love for more people to protect their peace and their sanity and their time. And, um, I practice with a registration, see how it's going to work out if you're not really sure on like whether a functionality would work or not. Like create a test site and play around with the
Mhm.
features and like mess around and just like get messy with it and try and see how it goes. And just like, I just would love for more people to give registration the love and time that it deserves and recognition that it is a big part of our process and it deserves more time and love and upfront planning and but also be tough with your time and God, we need to say no more and we need to say, no, I am unavailable to change that at the
Mhm.
last minute because you didn't think of it earlier. Like put it on the list for next year. We'll do it next year, but this year is not going to be the year. So I'm just passionate about registration and giving it its voice and also saving my planners their sanity because we need to do more of that.
For
And
sure.
thank you so much.